So welcome to Wednesday's Srimad Bhagavatam class, and we are going to continue with the chapter 1, Canto 1, chapter 7, teachings, the son of Drona punished. So, Hare Krishna. Hope we're all set up there, hope you can hear me. We are right in the middle of the action here, when there has been a Brahmastra released, and there's no way to take it back. And then Krishna is there with Arjuna, and he's explaining to him what he has to do in this particular situation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 A reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 28, the son of Drona punished. Na hyasyanyat tamam kanchid astram pratyavakarshanam jahyastra teja vrinadham astragyo hyastra tejasa. Na hyasyanyat tamam kinchid astram pratyavakarshanam Jahyastra teja urnadham astogyo hyastra tejasa. Nahyasyan atmanam kinchid astram pratyavakarshanam Jahyastra teja urnadham astogyo hyastra tejasa. And the word for word translation. Na, not. He, certainly. Asya, of it. Anyatamam, other. Kinchit, anything. Astram, weapon. Prati, counter. Avakshanam, reactionary. Jahi, subdue it. Astrateja, the glare of this weapon. Unadham, very powerful. Astragya, expert in military science. He, as a matter of fact. Astratejasa, by the influence of your weapon. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. O Arjuna, only another Brahmastra can counteract this weapon. Since you are expert in the military science, subdue this weapon's glare with the power of your own weapon. Purport. For the atomic bombs, there is no counter weapon to neutralize the effects. But by subtle science, the action of a Brahmastra can be counteracted, and those who were expert in the military science in those days could counteract the Brahmastra. The son of Dronacharya did not know the art of counteracting the weapon, and therefore Arjuna was asked to counteract it by the power of his own weapon. Amaginati Madandasya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chaksharan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnuvedaya Krishna Vastaya Krishna Namo Vishnuvedaya Krishna Vastaya Krishna Bhakti Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Bhagavad Gacharani Nirvishesha Sunipa Sitari. So I was thinking today to give a talk on nuclear science, but then I kind of decided I probably wouldn't. I didn't have a lifetime to discuss, to try to investigate it. So, and even if I'd spent a lifetime investigating it, I probably wouldn't know what was what. But instead, I thought I would use a little bit of initiative. By consulting the Bhagavatam, where I'm reading at the moment, because I kind of found some parallels, probably had to make some parallels really. I didn't want to go to discuss the whole episode with the son of Drona here again, because it's been brilliantly discussed by many other devotees up to this point. And so I took a kind of an angle from the point of view that the Brahmastra was thrown and Arjuna was in difficulty, and of course in one sense it was a material difficulty, so I tried to make a parallel between us and the material world, and how we are under the attack of the Brahmastra of the material nature. How we're struggling with the material nature, and in fact, of course, that's what this whole Bhagavatam is about. It's to help the living entity who is stuck in this material world with his material desires, and to try to find a way out. And of course, the great acharyas and the Srila Prabhupada's purports give us that, and it is by the method of devotional service, performing activities to please Krishna, and not to perform activities for sense gratification. And that is where the material energy comes into it, because the material energy is constantly trying to get us to perform activities for sense enjoyment, basically, and we're totally complicit, unfortunately. So the section where I'm reading at the moment is in the 4th canto, when King Prithu has descended on the earth, and this is taken from a section coming towards the end of his pastimes. King Prithu was such a glorious king that even Lord Vishnu came to the sacrifice. It's interesting when you read these different pastimes a little bit more closely, or a little bit more intensely. You get the kind of the character of the people that are involved, like whether it is Dhruva Maharaj, it's Prahlad Maharaj, it is Prithu Maharaj, it is, Maharaj, I was Pratip, oh my god, I can't think of his name now actually. Priyavrata, Maharaj Priyavrata. You get an idea of the personality. I mean, we're only given tiny little, sketches of their life in the Bhagavatam, and of course there's great acharyas, they fill it in for us quite a lot. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, no doubt, in the 10th canto and in all the other cantos as well, but they give us a very deep insight into these great personalities. But anyway, this is coming towards the end of King Prithu's pastimes on the planet, and Lord Vishnu had forecast that in the future the 4 Kumaras would visit King Prithu, and that is of course a great boon. Like we have the 4 Kumaras and Narada, sons of Brahma in that sense. these are amazing personalities, and when they actually come, it means that everything is very, very auspicious, because the four Kumaras, they're able to go from any of the planets, one planet to another. They're not restricted, and their whole goal is to spread Krishna consciousness. That's why they're going from one place to the next. Is why they're enlightening people. That is what they do. And so it's incredible that Lord Vishnu said, "Oh, don't worry, the four Kumaras are coming," whereas Lord Vishnu was already there. But of course, when they came, I think everyone remembers that picture in the Bhagavatam where King Prithu goes and the four Kumaras are sitting there. King Prithu is bathing their feet and is going to put the water on his head and put the water on the head of all his family members. So they were definitely greeted properly. But what happens at this point is that King Prithu then starts to ask them a question, you know. In other words, basically, how can one burning in the material world be helped? Even that whole phrase burning, you know, that's, of course, this is the reference to the Brahmastra, you know. How can one be helped in this situation? And of course, this is what the whole Bhagavatam is about. This is why we're asking these questions. This is why we're at Bhagavatam class in the morning, to try to hear regularly how we can get out of this material world and go back to the spiritual world. Or in certain instances, or practically in all instances, how we can be spiritual while in the material world. Iha yasa hriya dasya. That whole verse, I'll actually come to it a bit later. To Jivan Mukta Sa Uchide, how we can be actually liberated while in this world. So this is a great activity, you know, to perform. This is what Bhagavatam was doing. This is what Bhagavatam encourages. This is why we came to the Krishna consciousness movement, because it gave us this incredible opportunity to see things outside the material conditioning, outside our designation, outside our time, even, you know, where we're coming in this material world, because the information which is aporo sheya, it's coming from beyond the material world, and it is it's obviously it's liberating, and but it gives us that sense of that experience of service to Krishna. So this is the section where Prithu asks the four Kumaras this question. The reason that I came back on this is because, as sometimes happens to me when I read Bhagavatam, I have my quota every day, and I get quite absorbed in it, you know, by Krishna's grace from time to time, and I get lost in the purports, and sometimes I forget. Oh, wait a minute. What was the actual story that was going on there? So in this instance, I was reading these amazing purports from the Kumaras, but I forgot the context in which it was done. So I said I wanted to go back and actually hear again what was being said there, just so that I could get a better understanding of what was happening. And of course, again, that gives you a great overview as well. That the King Prithu's there, and he's absolutely, you know, listening with intent of what the Kumaras are saying, and they are giving him this knowledge. They're so happy to see that King Prithu is asking them these questions, and they're so intent. You know, this whole word is so much important in spiritual life. This desire, this intense desire, this lolium to understand what is actually the spiritual world about. And so the instructions that are coming here are applicable for every Bhagavatam class in that sense. But it's particularly because Shastra is like the weapon. It's Arjuna is throwing the weapon which will bring the two Brahmastras together and withdraw both of them together. So in that sense, this is the Shastra is giving us this information. We're in the material world, so that we can bring both the material world and spiritual world back to us, and then we can only live in the spiritual world. So it's in that sense, it's a great opportunity to hear how this is done from the spiritual perspective. So I'm just going to take certain verses and read some from the purports. So we can take it from that from the section. Richard's asking, how can one burning in the material world be helped? And Sanat Kumar answers, "My dear King Prithu, I am very nicely questioned by you. Such questions are beneficial for all living entities, especially because they are raised by you who are always thinking of the good of others. Although you know everything, you ask such questions because that is the behavior of saintly persons. Such intelligence is befitting your position." So all the Bhagavatam has been recited for the good of others. The Maharaj Parikshit's been spoken to by Shukadeva Goswami, and then Shonika is questioning Sutta Goswami to give the whole sages have set up so that they could speak this knowledge for the good of humanity. And then it goes on to say, when there is a congregation of devotees, their discussions, questions and answers become conclusive to both the speaker and the audience. Thus such a meeting is beneficial for everyone's real happiness. And I'm going to intersperse this with some amazing purports by Srila Prabhupada, because every word of them is full of transcendental meaning and transcendental potency. It's like the second verse in the Shikshastika, that all your words, you've invested your great potency in these holy names. But Lord Chaitanya says, "But I am so fallen, I have no attachment for them." But that's so that we can actually approach these words with humility. Humility is such an important thing, especially when it comes to the holy names in the scripture, because we get some information from the scripture and the holy name, and then we might think, "Oh yes, I know this, I'm better than everyone else." No, this is why humility is the part and parcel of this whole process, because we understand how tiny we are, and in that sense we become perfect receptacles for this knowledge as well. Hearing discussion among devotees is the only means to receive the powerful message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For instance, Bhagavad Gita has been well known all over the world for a very long time, especially in the Western world. But because the subject matter was not discussed by devotees, there was no effect. Not a single person in the West became Krishna conscious before the Krishna consciousness movement was founded. But when the same Bhagavad Gita was presented as it is through the disciplic succession, the effect of spiritual realization was immediately manifested. So again, Prabhupada is speaking very clearly on that point. Now, I hope my notes are correct here. I just wanted to come to a verse here, a famous verse. Our teacher Tulsi Priya Prabhu often speaks this verse. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti kritkarna rasayana kata tajochana sasvapavarga bhartmani shadadatir bhakti anukramishati. By association with devotees, dirty things within the heart of a materialistic man are gradually washed away by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this translation, "My dear King, you already have an inclination to glorify the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such attachment is very difficult to achieve, but when one has attained such unflinching faith in the Lord, it automatically cleanses lusty desires from the core of the heart." Of course, that other verse as well, that Srinvata Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vridyanta Stoja Radhani Vidhunoti Suhit Satam, that the dirty things in the heart are removed just by hearing in the association of devotees. These are very powerful messages, and this is what Sanat Kumar is saying to King Prithu, and is saying to us. So he's asking him, how can we get out of this burning material desires in this world? And then again, Sanatana Goswami says, Sanat Kumar, "It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures, after due consideration, that the ultimate goal for the welfare of human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life, an increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental beyond the modes of nature." So those two things seem to be constantly coming up: detachment from matter and attachment for spirit, attachment for Krishna. So that's what we're trying to do in this Krishna consciousness movement. we're trying to constantly develop this attachment for Krishna. So why are we trying to do that? Well, because when we become in contact with Krishna or Krishna's pure devotees, then we actually become elevated ourselves beyond the material consideration, and we get some inclinations, we get some intimations of immortality. We get some taste for what it is to be in the spiritual world, so that we can get some impetus then to leave the material world and to give up the attachment for the material things. This is a theme which Sanat Kumar is definitely presenting totally over and over again. He's telling us to give up the attachment for the material world. If we associate with material things, then we'll become attached to material things. And it is very difficult almost to give up the material things, because we're so used to doing it since time immemorial. And if we're not so used to spending the time in the spiritual subject matter. And that's the area that we were trying to go into, to develop that taste for the spiritual things. And we were having a discussion last night that where is it that we can get people to become attached to Krishna consciousness these days? Because it seems to be there's an increasing detachment from anything to do with matter or subject matter about God. We can hardly even use it in any of our scriptures. The Christian doctrine is finished, or catechism, or any of those things, and it is removed from the curriculum, or from classes or from schools, and basically we have this kind of a discussion about what do you think about this, and what do you think about this, and what do you. So there's no kind of doctrine coming in at all, no clarity as regards spiritual science. Everybody has their own opinion about things, and therefore God's opinion is not taken into consideration, because everybody's opinion is so valuable, and everyone's an expert on everything. Just have to got Google, and they just have to discuss, and then they present their everybody is a guru, basically, So these are the kind of atmospheres in which we're brought in. And I was making the point that years ago, the 30s, 40s, 50s, a lot of people were God-fearing. They actually went to church. They wanted to go back to the spiritual world. That was a lot of the thing. That was a motivator for a lot of people. Not everybody, obviously. But a lot of people that I knew, a lot of my aunts, uncles, that was their underlying part. They had their spiritual energy. So I think that our generation picked up some of that. And although we went askew or awry in investigating other methods to try to attain so-called satisfaction, you can't get no satisfaction, if you know what I'm talking about. But we still had that kind of base, or that grounding. But then the next generation coming after us, that I can see anyway, and it's been, they don't have that example of people who actually were taking spiritual subject matters as being important. But instead, it was replaced by money being the god, and I can actually see where it started to happen, actually, because there was two things which came in: supermarkets and piped television. Those two things, they introduced a whole influx of, shall we say, Gramya Kata, information about all sorts of materialistic things. You can enjoy, you can have this. I remember when I was playing one time out in the bank, was just outside our house one time with all the friends and whatever, and this American chap came along. He started telling us about colour TV. Colour TV, our eyes nearly popped out of our heads. Can you imagine colour TV? And then eventually we got our first colour TV. Yeah, wow, everything changed after that. No, that was the idea, that once we had this, then, so this whole idea of once you have this, you'll be happy. If you have this, you'll be happy. So then for it just became a disease, and then the whole idea that through spiritual enjoyment you could be happy, no, that started to go. Then planes start coming in, then you could go here, you could go there, you could enjoy this, you could enjoy that, even better, and then the whole, flats, houses started to pop up everywhere. I mean, there were amazing houses already, in Dublin, Dublin 2, Dublin 4, you can see these incredible houses that were built, so people definitely had huge sense enjoyment or gratificatory desires at that point, but it became more mass produced on a greater scale. People wanted this house, that house, that house. And then my kind of occupation was going down the country selling items of artwork, and for the devotees. Now that was a devotional service at that time, selling paraphernalia, and but then you see these most rural towns now. You know, these old houses that were falling into the ground, old thatched houses that were, you know, growing into the earth, practically speaking, and they were being replaced by these massive 6-7 bedroomed houses that every last person had. So, you know, you could see that the whole kind of the sky was the limit. But now, so therefore, basically, money replaced God as being the what people were seeking. Like there was huge hotels popped up. No new churches happened. These great churches were before, but now no new churches. Hotels, bars, resorts, 5 stars, all this sort of thing happened. Golf courses, casinos, you know. This was the order of the day, and this is what people are considering what is the most important thing. I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and they happened to be the personal secretary of one of the richest persons in Ireland, and
Names?
And I'm not mentioning any names, so they were their personal servant for 10 years, and for about 10 minutes the person launched on how horrible this person was, this very wealthy, well-known Irish millionaire. Absolutely, literally for 10 minutes he was almost in a trance, explaining to me how horrible a nature this person had, and he went into detail how he humiliated this person, how he sacked people after many years, how he was an absolute bully. And one time he had a special guest in his hotel, and who was it? Sir Donald. That's all I'll say about that one there. But he said the two of them got on great. They were great great buddies. But anyway, so but these are the models that are held up. This is what people want to become, not Sanat Kumar, not Narada Muni, not King Prithu. So anyway, my point is that it's it is getting difficult these days to where to actually reach people, you know, because the standard of enjoyment. I mean, even when I go out sometime, when I chant in the morning time at 6, sometimes 6:30, sometimes 7 o'clock, you have people practicing football, people practicing basketball in around where I am, kids, and they're this ball, you know, throwing it into the loop, time and time again. Okay, it keeps their body fit in the same sense. But previously, the standard of enjoyment among the youth was debating, you know, spiritual subject matter. So this is the world around us anyway. But in our discussion last night, one of the areas that we felt that was most important was Kirtan. You know, in Kirtan, because that is attractive. This is Lord Chaitanya's method. Kirtan and Prasadam. We go back to this festival that we had in the church in Leeds End, Irish Town, and fabulous Prasadam was presented as well. You know, it's absolutely incredible Prasadam. I won't go into the details, but I kind of get absorbed in that from time to time. But fantastic chanting and Kirtan. People were absolutely fully satisfied, and so that is one method. But obviously we can only have our quarterly Kirtan melas and so on, and our monthly mantra lounges. But what do we do in the rest of the time, you know? And I don't want to just get on my hobby horse here again, because I actually haven't, I haven't actually produced anything on this level. But in preaching in Ireland, there is a great opportunity because we have a restaurant in town. and so nicely developed by our devotees. Prakosh from Goloka, Mahotsa, the development that they did at this restaurant is phenomenal. And of course, we're in this kind of a difficult situation now. We're trying to get this back on the ground despite all the COVID circumstances. But from that, the whole idea of simple living, which Srila Prabhupada wanted to introduce, and that is actually becoming topical these days, because one thing about the youth of today, even though they don't have they might not have that kind of religious kind of side of things, it is transformed into another way. Now I don't want to say it's completely transformed into another way of spiritual development, but it also has which has brought with it a greater intelligence to see how things should be worked on this planet. I mean, you have, as an example, why would they take for an example this last generation who completely practically destroyed so much of the planet, so that there is a great emphasis now to try to do things which are ecologically friendly. The whole government has just changed now, and there is a Green Party in there. So there's a whole mood in that direction. So the devotees should be on the crest of that wave, and it is very, very interesting. There's so many different areas where we can actually try to develop in that situation. And our devotees at the moment, they're creating a website so that we can actually start our eco thrust, shall we say, to try to bring people along with us. So this is areas of interest that people are interested in, that the preaching is going in a particular direction. So we should take total advantage of that as much as we can. But I want to come back again to some of the instructions from Sanat Kumar. He talks about inquiring about the Supreme and applying Bhakti Yoga, worshipping the Yogeshwara, and chanting, hearing the glories of the Supreme, or the pure devotee. These are different things that has been introduced, and that he's explaining how we can actually get out of this burning of the material world. I'm actually missing some of the verses that have been spoken about here. Iha yasya hareya dasya karmana ninisha achara nikala svabhyavastastu jivan muktasa uchite. And Prabhupada twice he put in one purport after another. Whatever his condition may be, one who is engaged fully with his body, mind and speech in the service of the Lord is liberated even within this body. So Sanat Kumar, let me read his messages. One has to make progress in spiritual life by not associating with persons who are simply interested in sense gratification and making money. So that is the link. Not only such persons, but one who associates with such persons should be avoided. One should mold his life in such a way that he cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari. One can thus be elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment. One can be elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment. Anyone out there know that verse about being disgusted with sense enjoyment? It's Yamunacharya. When he thinks of sex life, he spits out the thought. So this is the area we need to get into as devotees. So I want to move on here. Sanat goes, a candidate for spiritual advancement must be, this is some of the qualities that we need to develop, must be non-violent, follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow regulative principles without desire, and while following the regulative principles should not blaspheme others. A devotee should have a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. The devotee should gradually increase the culture of devotional service by constant hearing of the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These pastimes are like ornamental decorations on the ears of devotees. By rendering devotional service and transcending the material qualities, one can be easily fixed in transcendence in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is very interesting because we should hear about the pastimes of Krishna and not about the material world. Why? Because of Gramya Katha. Gramya Katha is hearing about the affairs of the material world. This is one of the things which keeps us plugged into the material world. Because of a kind of a natural infinity, a natural inclination to hear about material subject matters. This is what Sanat Kumar is warning us against. He's giving us some impetus by hearing him, but he's giving us some direction on how to lead our lives. If we can spend the time early in the morning developing this ability to become one-minded, focused on the Supreme, one-minded focus on Krishna, that will give us that impetus throughout the day to think of Krishna even throughout the day. And that means focusing on the holy name, focusing on the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Because in the Maha Mantra is all the potencies of God. And we surrender to the Maha Mantra. Surrender is a big word, and it is a very important word, because we're surrendering that tendency that we have for material enjoyment. We're surrendering that, we're getting rid of that, and instead we're surrendering our actual self to Krishna, and we're becoming a servant of Krishna. We become part and parcel of Krishna. It's such an important way in which we live, that Krishna is throughout. He's everywhere, But he's also we're like the Vivinangsha expansions of Krishna. We're an expansion of Krishna. That is the Tadvidi Pranipatina Paripashnina Seva Upagilashanti Tigyanam Gyaninas Tattva Darshinaha. Shani, I was going to ask you. I just want to get this verse. 1 second. It's Krishna says that what is this knowledge? It means we should surrender to the spiritual master, and he gives us knowledge by which we can come to him, basically. And what is this knowledge? It says that the knowledge is that having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living entities are but part of the Supreme. See, this is the knowledge. All living entities are but part of the Supreme. Or in other words, that they are mine. So that's where we want to get to. This is the knowledge that we have to see. We have to see Krishna everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost in me. 5:18, the humble stage by virtue of true knowledge can see. I'll just read it out. 5:18. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hasini Sunichaiva Svapakachas Panditaha Samadarshaha. The humble stage by virtue of true knowledge will see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So that is the vision that is required, that we'll see with equal vision all of these different living entities. And this vision is absolutely essential for the devotees to be on, basically. We have to get to that vision. We have to see Krishna everywhere. Why? Because it is in the mode of goodness. It is goodness and beyond goodness. We can get beyond goodness if we get to goodness. And this also reminds me of another verse in the Bhagavad Gita. It's in the 18th chapter, and it is 18:20, because it's a further explanation of this point. A very important verse actually to realize, especially in today's time. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. So in other words, you see everybody you see Krishna within them. You know, Krishna is also his own expansions. That's the Svangsa, the higher expansions of God. But we're like the Vivinangsa expansions of God. And we're not only in the human form, but it's in the animal form, it's in the plant form. The soul is everywhere. And Krishna is spread everywhere in all of these expansions. This is Krishna's expansions, and that's what we should be seeing. We shouldn't be seeing separately. We shouldn't be seeing designations, and we should be actually removing these designations. Why? Because if we don't, this is what will happen. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion. So there's where the designations come in. He's not my race, he doesn't belong to me. He's the animals don't have any souls, you know.
Women, no souls.
So this person is from this country. He's black, he's white, he's yellow, he's red, you know. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Unless we develop that actual knowledge, we will start to see those designations, and we'll be covered by the modes of passion and ignorance. And the modes are constantly acting upon us. So this is like the Brahmastra that's there. This is what King Prithu is asking Sanat Kumar. Why are we burning? What is this burning about? And but what we should be burning is the coverings of the soul, because the soul is there with the super soul. He's in there with the super soul, but instead he's ignoring the super soul, and he's been covered by the earth, water, fire, air, ether, or even the lamentation. Actually, there's a verse here which explains what we're covered by. The five covering elements. My God, it's just here. We're covered by egoism, attachment to the material world, envy, absorption in material consciousness. So the soul is covered by these things. So spiritual knowledge burns, it burns away all of those different things. Instead of being burnt by the material world, the spiritual energy, it burns those things away, so that we can actually see clearly who we are, and we understand our relationship with Krishna, and then then Krishna is there with the super soul. Then we act on the basis of the super soul. Then therefore become one, you could say. And therefore we're acting then in our constitutional position. So all of these things are also interrelated. So therefore, Prabhupada very interestingly says how about the Krishna Consciousness Society. He said, "This is only possible in Krishna consciousness. In this movement there are many different races of men from all parts of the world participating. But because they think themselves as servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead," and not only think so, but are, then, sorry, I didn't want to put it that way, but that they do not differentiate between black and white, yellow and red. The Krishna Consciousness movement is therefore the only means to make living entities free of all designations. So in this particular situation, if we're acting in the service of Krishna, if we burnt away all the designations, all the upadhis, we're there with the super soul, we're acting to please Krishna, then this power can happen, this power. But if we don't, if we want to enjoy the senses separately from Krishna, and we're not trying to please Krishna, then we'll say, I want this, you can't have this, you can't have this. This country is my country. No, you can't come into this country. We want it for us. No, my family is the best. No, it's not for. I'm working for my family. I want to get my house, my this. You know, all of this comes in. This is the world in which we're living in. And this is what we want. We're trying to present. We're meant to be the Brahminical aspect of society. We're meant to have this Brahminical overview in society. So we're trying to bring this overview in, so that we can give vision to society, so that it can function properly in this world. Because if the head is not there, then it's not going to function. So Prabhupada, he engaged with society all throughout. I mean, even in the 40s and the 50s, Prabhupada was answering this article in his Back to Godhead magazines. He was trying to engage. He wanted to get in there, and he wanted to try to change society. And he never lost that vision, and he still has that vision. So, as part of the Krishna consciousness movement, that's like our birthright in that sense. The Achyuta Gotra. That's our Gotra. You know, the Gotra of the inconceivable, or the supreme personality of Godhead. So, at the same time, we should be careful about when we're getting involved in the material world. Sometimes we get too much involved, and we get onto this side and we go fighting on that side, and what about this and what about that, and then we forget to spend the time in the spiritual subject matter to hone our vision carefully so that we can see properly, and then we can be of some help. So it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing how to be part of the world but not of the world, and also to have an influence on the world. Okay, so I'll stop there with those thoughts, and I'm not sure if that created any controversy or any questions, any comments.
There's a comment by Gulnara.
Gulnara has a comment, yes.
It's a great analogy of the Brahmastra of this material world, and how spiritual energy has been gradually replaced by material. Churches, hotels replace churches. Everyone becomes a quick guru after a consultation with Google. Everyone becomes a guru after a quick consultation with Google.
Everyone becomes a guru after quick consultation with Google. Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you see in a newspaper article, you see 2,300 comments or something like that, or even in our discussions online on Facebook, which is great. It's good. People open up. We get to hear what people have to say, and there's all different comments, and sometimes it's very interesting to see the comments. And discussion, that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to discuss the different things, to discuss how to stay clear of the material world. But ultimately, we come back to Shastra, we come back to Guru, and Sadhu, and so on. So there are our guidelines, not Google. Google, whatever to do. Take the first letter is the same anyway. But it's like we definitely need to take stock by developing this vision, because the divisive vision is all about. I didn't even talk about the mode of ignorance, that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of truth, and which is very meager, is in the mode of darkness. And Prabhupada very much says, it is more or less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals, the knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Such knowledge is described here as the product of the mode of darkness. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. Knowledge producing so many theories, doctrines, by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation, is the product of the mode of passion. And knowledge concerned only with keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So there the modes are hitting us all the time, and we're meant to be hitting the mode of goodness all the time. So not just if there's any other comments or questions.
Just 1 second. No.
Okay, Hare Krishna. You got off lightly today. No long class. Hare Bol. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaur Premanandi.